Mr. Chris Kermode, the president of Association of Tennis Professional. We are the second day of next gen ATP finals in Milan. It's hard to say what it's going to be like. It's a baby for the moment, but your first impression, what is the most difficult thing?
It's been a huge challenge to get this event off the ground. I mean, I thought about the concept about 2 years ago, and it was two-pronged approach. It was, we're coming to the end of the biggest, the greatest era of men's professional tennis with Roger, Rafa, Novak, Andy and Stan. And over the next 2 or 3 years they're going to leave the game, and we need to be ready with the next generation of players and promote them and put them on a stage and a piece of theatre, which we've done, and start getting their names out there. The talent of this next generation of players is so tough and so ingrained in their DNA that they're going to be champions. And I think it's going to be an incredibly exciting time for men's professional tennis. They are also from a very geographically diverse spread. So we've now got Asians, we've got Australians, we've got Americans, we've got Europeans. I think it's going to be the most exciting next generation. That was partly the reason, and the second reason was we're going to test case sort of innovation for the game that maybe in the future that we can use. At the moment, men's professional tennis is in the best place it's ever been, but we want to make sure that when the next generation of fans come, that they're ready to be able to look at a product that we think is going to be even better.
Yeah, the new rules, I mean, of course, it's controversial. Some people like it, some don't. Richard Evans, he's very enthusiastic. I mean, he's a history of tennis. But some people like Nicola Pietrangeli or for example, some other journalists, Italian journalist, Gianni Clerici, you know him too, they are skeptical. They said it's not tennis, it's like ping pong. You don't have to think. What is, among those rules, what is the rule you like the most, and is one that you think is controversial?
All of it's probably controversial because fundamentally people hate change. They like things how it was, and in sport in general people hate change. So we're not going to rush and make these changes because we think it's funny, or just doing it to make changes for change's sake. We're doing it because we think that we need to look at for the future, and that's why we're just trying these things here. So it slightly amuses me that people get so emotionally uptight about something that we're just trying. And maybe at the end of this week we all determine that none of it works. Maybe we decide that a lot of it does, some of it does, one thing, but there'll be seeds of ideas that I think we can use in the future. And the great thing about it is sport is a talking point. You need mixed opinion, and the fact that people are talking about tennis is a good thing. So we need to keep that conversation and that dialogue going. In terms of the rules that I personally like, I actually do like the best of 5 sets, first to 4. Do I think that's going to happen in tennis in the next 5 years? No. But I think it's something that we should be looking at maybe 10 years from now. I think the shot clock for sure should happen. I think the reduced warm-up can probably be even shorter. So I think those two. The free movement of people I quite like. I know some people won't. The electronic line calling I think is good. It makes the court look super clean. But the great thing is we're trying it. We're not going to rush into making the changes, and let's see what happens.
You are the president of ATP, and you have a vision of the game. You try to be a little bit revolutionary. It's difficult, as you said, because it's a word a little bit, tennis is par excellence the sport linked with the tradition. What would you like to be remembered for when your term is finished?
I get asked that question quite a lot, and for me I've always been very suspicious of any sports administrator who's meant to be behind the scenes thinking that it's about their legacy. For me, the sport is much bigger than anybody's. It's way bigger than me, and it's way bigger than any player. It's way bigger than any tournament. So I just feel we have a responsibility. I feel so passionate about the sport. I think it's one of the greatest, if not the greatest, sport show on earth. I just I think I have a responsibility to look to the future to make sure that we retain that level. And if we do all of this testing and we find at the end of it that we don't want to change anything, that's fine too. But at least we've had a look. I just don't want to be standing here in 5 years' time saying, shall we have a shot clock?
What is your view of the prize money between the let's say the future tournaments, this is ITF or the ATP Challenger, and the Grand Slams? This is not you, but Masters Series, this ATP. Is it too big? It's a temptation for the players who start to do, for example, the match fixing, which is like a big danger of
I hear this a lot, that it's because of the money. I don't believe that. I believe that if you are going to be a professional tennis player from a very young age, again, in your being, you are ultra competitive. You want to make it to the top. You are never ever going to do that. I do believe we have too many ranked professionals, because I think many of them have maybe got one ATP point, and to me, you're not a professional tennis player with one ATP point. I had a few ATP points. I never considered myself a professional tennis player. So I think there are hundreds of players that, for the public, seem to be professionals because they have a ranking, and I think that's a cause of a lot of the issue, because those guys might be tempted because they were never going to make it in the first place.
Poland is a country almost of 38 million and we don't have an ATP tournament. What does it take? Is it possible to have a tournament on clay, for example, before Roland Garros? I think it's impossible.
Nothing's impossible, but we have a very crowded calendar. You know, we have 62 events throughout the world from 32 countries, and it constantly changes. You know, events do move from regions, countries to countries, and it's about timing. Often it's about whether a player is coming through and there's a momentum for a certain region to have tennis. But ultimately, it requires one of our tournaments to sell.
Okay. Chris Kermode, thank you so much for the interview.
Thank you.